Okay, so we want to talk today about the lower brain, or what, if we're using that three item terms for the brain, right? We did the hindbrain, the brainstem, and the cerebellum. This is the midbrain. And then we're going to go to what's called the forebrain or the cerebral cortex. So this is the part of the brain. It's a very primitive part of the brain, but it's going to set up above that brainstem area, and it's actually going to be in a pocket in between the right and left hemispheres that we see usually. So those are going. That's where this is going to be. Let me split the brain open for you here. Take a look at the screen, and you can see what I'm talking about. We talked about in split brain theory the corpus callosum, that bundle of nerves that's going to let the right and left hemispheres of the brain talk to each other. You can see that there. And then inside of that pocket is where we're going to see the parts of the brain that we're going to take a look at today. Now, you don't consciously use these parts of the brain, but you're going to see that they are very important in overall brain function. So let's take a look. We're going to break down each part of it. I'll show you where it's at and what it does. The thalamus, right? So if you look here, it's got a kind of a cool little um, drawing for you. Right at the top of the brainstem, you've got a right and a left thalamus that are there. And every piece of information that comes in from your body, so from those nerve endings that are going all the way to the ends of your fingertips, your toes, any kind of sensation that's coming in from outside of your body is coming up through the spinal cord and into the thalamus. And the thalamus is kind of the relay station for your brain. Every bit of information that comes in there, then the thalamus decides where that information needs to go. Right? We've seen that different parts of the brain do different things, and we're going to see that even more with the forebrain. And so the thalamus, though, is what's going to be responsible for sending those things to the part of the brain where they can all get taken care of. So as the thalamus comes in, what would happen, man, if something was wrong with the thalamus, right? Well, those signals would get crossed or things would go in different places. It's one of the theories of what happens when a patient has schizophrenia, is that there's a little bit of dysfunction in the thalamus, and so stuff's not being sent into the places where it's supposed to go. But really important part of your brain, if stuff's coming down from the thinking, the kind of the forebrain or the cerebral cortex, is going to come down to the thalamus, and then that signal is going to get sent out to the body. So all the information that's coming in and all the information that's going out is running through the thalamus. Just below the thalamus, it's actually a smaller part of the brain, but it has got a ton of jobs and a longer name. So this is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus, so longer name, smaller part, but a lot more jobs that the hypothalamus is going to do. This is a part of your body that is your kind of internal thermostat or temperature gauge. It regulates body activity. One of the things that happens when ladies get to the point in their lives where they go through menopause, right, is they'll have hot flashes, and that's where part of this can come from. This is connected, as you can see from the eyes, that optic nerve that's coming in, very connected to light. And so this is one of the things that helps regulate your body's activity cycles. We know a lot of things like jet lag and things like that are influenced by what are called our circadian rhythms, just kind of the natural rhythm of our body. Hypothalamus is doing that. Hunger and thirst originate from the hypothalamus. So if you've got disorders that make you think you're always hungry or you're never hungry, thirsty or not thirsty, that's going to be a problem of the hypothalamus. This is also where sex drive is going to come from, or partly come from. So that's important. By far for us as psychology students, the most important function of the hypothalamus, at least in my opinion, is the fight or flight instinct. And so this is the part of our brain that tells us whether or not we're in danger. And when you're in danger, right, your body does things to prepare you to deal with the danger. And so that's part of the job of the hypothalamus, is to kind of kick in the autonomic nervous system and say, hey, we got to get ready for the struggle. Now the problem can be what happens when we're not really in danger and this kicks in. And so that'll be a symptom of when we talk about anxiety disorders later. There could be something that's fitting in here. Or what happens when, man, you got a year like 2020 and everything is just dramatic, right? Everything seems like an emergency. What happens when you've got all of those feelings going on all the time? And it can be almost exhausting to be dealing with that all the time. Again, that's something the hypothalamus has to deal with. And so just tons of jobs. This is the part for those of you in my audience who are a little geeky, right? That Bruce Banner, the guy that becomes the Incredible Hulk, uses those gamma rays to hit this part of the brain to release his inner rage and become the Hulk. My personal favorite part of the brain is the amygdala, not only because it is just a fun word to say, but because it has got a lot of very interesting things to do with it as well. The amygdala helps us to recognize emotions in other people. So reading faces, understanding body language, voice tones, things like that is a function of the amygdala. This is also where the emotions of our memory are stored. So if something happens and it's very traumatic, that would be a job of the amygdala. In addition to kind of the emotional memory, and hopefully you get what I mean by that, there are probably some memories you have where you remember how you felt in that particular situation. In some ways, those can be more vivid, right? Um, more alive, those memories that have that emotional connection. And that can be a really good thing, or it can be a really bad thing. If you have something traumatic happen to you, and it's almost like a re-experiencing. We'll see that when we look at things like post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that that come in. Your amygdala is also your gut instinct. All right, we talked about how before cultures had said the emotions are seated in the heart, right? Well, if you've ever played poker or done anything like that, people say go with your gut, right? Go with what your instincts are telling you is the right thing to do. It's not actually your gut. Again, if you're feeling something in your gut, maybe you had a bad burrito, right? Shouldn't have gone to Taco Bell at 3 in the morning. But your gut instinct, that thing that's saying, I think this is the right thing to do, is actually the amygdala, right? So you've got the creative side of your brain on the right side. You've got the logical, mathematical on the left side. But then you've got this gut instinct. As you can tell, right, there's a right and left amygdala that's right there in there that's saying, okay, maybe I'm going to take everything that I know about this and just say, hey, this is what I think that we ought to do. So, going with your gut is a function of the amygdala. The pituitary gland, which sits right below the amygdala, is the master gland for your entire body. Your body works two ways. It works with chemicals and it works with electricity. And so the chemicals that are making your brain work come from glands that are around your body, right? In your mouth, you have salivary glands that produce saliva. You've got glands for the digestive juices along the tracts. You've got the adrenal glands that sit on top of your kidneys. You have my personal favorite glands that are on your pancreas. They're called the inlets of Langerhans. Yes, that's a thing. And they make insulin for your body to help you break down sugar and things like that. They're all controlled by the pituitary gland. This real little gland in your brain is going to send messages to all those other glands. So let's say something activates the hypothalamus and it says you're in danger, right? Hypothalamus talks to the pituitary gland and says, hey, you need to get some adrenaline, injected out. And so the pituitary gland tells the adrenal glands, again right there on top of your kidneys, hey, we need you to dump some adrenaline into this person's bloodstream. And so complicated process, but the pituitary gland is what's going to control all of those glands. One thing that gets produced by the pituitary gland is HGH. That's human growth hormone. It's important when we're kids, as we're starting to grow up to being our full size. It is also one of those things, back when I was younger, um, as the steroid scandal was kind of rocking baseball and professional sports, HGH was one of the things the guys were taking to try and get a competitive advantage. Now, they never saw any proof that that was actually working, but it was one of the things they were trying, right, to get some sort of advantage over the people they were competing against. But all of those things are controlled by the pituitary gland. The last part is what's called the hippocampus. Now I've got this picture up here for you of a seahorse, right? The thing on the left is not like a baby seahorse. That's actually your hippocampus. And so looks a lot like a seahorse. And this is the part of your brain that is or part of your brain that's heavily involved in memories, recalling memories, and making new memories. Going to be the job of the hippocampus. One of the ways they can tell if people are suffering from memory-related disorders, right, is on an autopsy they'll look, and there's either a buildup of um, like some nasty fat and like chemicals, or there's degeneration of the tissue in the hippocampus. And so that's one of the ways, you tell people that are having trouble remembering things or making new memories. That can be a product here of the hippocampus. So those, it's a very, very important part of the brain. Now we're going to see that memories in a couple of other places, but again, this is where it would come into, and then and then get it's going to be stored in some different places in the brain. In the body. So, but the hippocampus is the part of our brain that's going to make new memories. So those are the parts of the lower brain. All right. So as we flip back through there, take a look and see. You've got the thalamus that's there, hypothalamus right below the pituitary gland. If you look just to the right of the pituitary gland, you're going to see the amygdala that's in there. Again, this is a part of the brain referred to as the midbrain, right? The hindbrain's down below. The forebrain, the cerebral cortex, we're going to talk about next, is there above. And so this is kind of a primitive, automatically functioning part of the brain, but a lot of very important stuff here, right? Memory, hunger and thirst, emotion. There's a lot of different cool things that are going on in the lower brain.